Hey guys, thank you for sticking around for so long. It actually was nice because the Lord kind of dealt with me during the beginning of while we were doing everything. I was really just focused internally. I had this great plan to do an interpretive dance for you guys. It wasn't going to work out though because the Lord told me that as I looked around, there's a lot of people in this room that I need to honor. And Kevin spoke last night that he wasn't supposed to be here, but it amazes me that I really am, and I have to give credit to the Lord for that because there's so many things and people in this room that have made this moment right here possible, and they were all orchestrated together through the Lord, and it started happening before I was even born. And it's really kind of crazy, but just backstory, my grandfather was a pastor, and growing up, I had a lot of family members and a lot of friends. Hey, the next Ridenhour pastor. And I'm like, no, that's not me. But it's always been like an internal heart's desire that I just kept quiet, really quiet. And it's so awesome how God allows your heart's desires to come out, even though when you're not vocal with them. But before I was born, there was a printing shop in St. Albans, and Pastor Terry was there. And my mother-in-law worked with him. And she then started coming to Maranatha, and I have to honor both of you two. And then she, of course, had my wife, who, I listen in this congregation all the time to pastors getting up here and talking about how wonderful their wives are. And my wife is amazing. I really, truly love her. She's beautiful. She's smoking hot. I've heard a couple pastors say that, so I know that's allowed. Just so you know, babe, I'm going to regret saying that later. But Robin, my mother-in-law, had my wife, and that came there. And then when we moved to West Virginia, I wasn't saved at the time. I knew of the Lord, but there was two families that really came underneath us, and they were our first real friends in faith, and they're the Greenleys and the Vances, and I honor both of you guys for being here tonight, one, and just loving us when we really didn't have anybody else to be around. So thank you. And then, I rededicated my life to the Lord during revival right there, and Pastor Jay was the one that prayed for me. I was going through some time trying to get connected somewhere, and you know what? The Lord really taught me how to be myself through Kevin Vance, because he's such a joyful, fun, loving person, and Joy McCutcheon, who both showed me how to be myself, and that I didn't have to be afraid of who I wanted to be. And then Pastor Darren, one day he called me up. He said, "What size shoe do you wear?" And he told me, and I told him, he's like, "Well, come over to my house." And you know what? When I went to his house and I tried on the shoes, I said, one day I'm going to preach from the pulpit in those shoes. And I had that internal desire, and right here are a pair of Pastor Darren's shoes on my feet. But so, Pastor Darren, I want to thank you for allowing me to walk in your shoes, literally. Yeah. But I felt like that was a little bit more meaningful than the interpretive dance I had planned to start off my message. But you know what? Today my message is called, it says it right there. That's so cool. So take your mark, get set, love. So that's the title of this message. Now, you need to know that love is a verb. It is something that we do, like an interpretive dance. But when you run a race, you always start with taking your mark. It's the first thing. It's the first thing we're called to do, and that first thing is to love God. So the mark is the starting place, and as Christians in our walk, we walk by accepting God into our heart, and you acknowledge that God is love. So we know how much God, and it says in 1 John 4:16, I didn't get that far. That's all right. We know how much God loves us, and we have put our trust in his love. God is love, and all who live in love live in God, and God lives in them. And then the Bible says that loving God is the most important thing that you can do as a Christian. And in Mark 12:28-30, of all the commandments, which is the most important? Jesus replied, the most important commandment in this, listen, O Israel, the Lord our God is the one and only Lord, and you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. So if love is such a big deal, why don't we fully prepare to love? Okay? We take our position at the starting point. We've all seen races. It's take your mark, get set, go. But a lot of times as Christians, we just get to the starting point and we take our mark, and then there's no get set. Okay? So we have to realize, So like my plan for the interpretive dance, I was ready. I was ready to take my mark, but I was nowhere close to getting set. And it would have been okay, but it wouldn't have been great. I wouldn't have been able to do the full thing in excellence. And excellence, just like love, is one of our core values. And, we need to make sure we're doing things in excellence and including love. So by preparing ourselves to love, it's going to help us do it in excellence. Now, this doesn't mean that we continually lose the race when we're not doing love and excellence. It just means that, we're not going to do it as well as we could have. And a lot of times, people won't even notice that you're not doing love and excellence, but it's not as good as it could have been or should have been, okay? If all we do is just approach the starting line, we're going to miss a lot of opportunities that God wanted us to be a part of, which is why we must consistently practice to get set. All right, and so when you get set, when somebody announces that, they're telling you, it's a warning you're about to start, and you need to prepare yourself. So remember that number one, we have to love God. That's our first thing. That's take our mark, if you will. But our number two is to get set, and that is to love others. And in Mark 12:31, the second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. No other commandment is greater than these. We get set, it means that we are preparing to start. The definition to prepare is to make plans for something that is going to happen in the future and to get ready for it. So how do you prepare to love others? The first thing you need to do is know what love is and recognize its power. And it's fairly simple. Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous, or boastful, or proud, or rude. It does not demand in its own way. It is not irritable. It keeps no records of wrongdoing. It does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never gives up. Love never loses faith. Is always hopeful and endures through every circumstance. The chapter ends with this: 3 things last forever: hope, faith, and love. And the greatest of these is love. All right, so if love is the greatest of these, why do we sometimes spend more time preparing to go to the grocery store than we do going to go love people? So like when I go to the grocery store, I go in without a list, and I go through and I'm scrolling the aisles. I'm picking up bags of chips, looking at the ones that are really like, that looks interesting, something that's hot, spicy, getting a pack of pepperoni rolls. Thinking to myself, does my wife want a snack? And just some advice, if your wife ever wants a snack, or if you think she might, she does, get your wife a snack. She always wants a snack. I'm going to get some ice cream. I think we're running low on milk. I'm going to get a little milk there. So I went in, but, when I went to the grocery store unprepared, I came out with a lot of junk, okay? And some of that junk, it's not necessarily that's bad junk. Some of it's good. Like, I really like potato chips. I'm not going to lie. I really like, they fill me up. But it's not necessarily what God has intended for me, okay? Now, if I had spent time with my wife and gave her, we discussed what things we needed for the grocery store, we would have been able to use our budget a little bit better. She would have told me exactly what we needed. And just like God, if I would have spent time with him, he would have told me exactly who I needed to love before the day. So it just goes to show that we have to be ready, and that's my number 2, be ready to love. Be sensitive to God's voice. Spend time talking to him. Spend time in the Word. Pray specifically about love. Reflect. All right? So a lot of times, I love, driving 30 minutes to an hour to work, but a lot of times when I come home, it's even worse. The traffic's horrible. But, I turn off my radio and I just reflect on my day. And it's, how could I have done this better? Did I miss an opportunity here? Because the Lord will speak to you if you ask him. And just like the grocery store, if I had spent more time talking to my wife about what we needed, I could have gone into the store and I would have known what my direction was. I wouldn't have been distracted. And so that's my number 3. Don't be distracted. The Bible shows us that Jesus prepared for the ultimate sacrifice, the greatest showcase in love in history. And he does that in 1 Peter 2, 22-23. He said, he never sinned. Never. Never means never. You just need to know that. Nor ever deceived anyone. He did not retaliate when he was insulted, nor threatened revenge when he suffered. He left his case in the hands of God, who always judges fairly. So Jesus never allowed himself to be swayed. He kept his eyes on the Father, and he left it in his hands because God judges fairly. It's simple as that. Jesus showed love continually. So now that we've taken our marks, we've gotten set, and now we're ready to go in love. I'll leave you with just a couple quick things to reflect on. In this race to love, God needs to be your coach. And then you have Jesus, and he's your pace setter, okay? So, dwell in your heart. Who is your coach? Who's setting your pace? Are you getting set to love? Or are you just taking your mark? Thank you.